Christmas in Scharendijke. This happened just before Christmas, 63 years ago, in 1942, when I was 10 years old. I was living in the small village of Scharendijke, on one of the islands of Zeeland, in the Netherlands. It was wartime and German soldiers patrolled on the dike. It was probably the highest dike in the Netherlands and maybe of the world. To get on top, you had to use one of the few sets of steps behind the village, with a handrail and 20 or 30 steps. Looking back over one's shoulder, the village was changed into a colony of red-tiled roofs, with further away scattered houses and farms in the green land. On top of the dike there was a pebbled concrete wall, 4 or 5 feet high, with a path next to it, so that one was half protected against stormy winds from the sea. The familiar sky on top of the wall was suddenly revealed to overarch an unthought world of the sea, huge, powerful and strange. Everything the village was not. Left, it went to the horizon, but on the right the adjacent island appeared as a dark line, with the tall tower of the lighthouse sticking out as a tiny match. My parents were Christian Reformed, and all our relatives were, and so was about everyone else we knew well. Half of the village was not, and their chances of going to heaven, like any of our church hoped she or he would do, were extremely slim. Some even visited the local pub, which almost certainly meant hell in a future life. Christmas in our church meant going to church, not once, but many times. On any Sunday, we went twice, once in the morning and once in the afternoon, after which children went to Sunday school, and teenage boys in the evening went to the church's young men's club. If Christmas was on a Sunday, that was it. But on other days, there were again 2 services on Christmas Day, and one on New Year's Eve, and one on New Year's Day. Skipping was sinful, and as our father was a member of the church council, not even thought of. The church ministers who had to preach the sermons had difficulty coming up with so many, and swapped pulpits at this time. A Christian Reformed Christmas was exclusively religious. In those times, gift giving was done at Sinterklaas on December the 5th, but even this was slightly suspect, as he was a bishop and therefore a Roman Catholic. But we celebrated it anyway, with gifts and teasing rhymes, but without the personal appearance of the holy man. However, for Christmas no compromise was allowed, hence no decorations, no candles and no Christmas tree, because these were pagan and worldly, and we were not. House and church were bare at Christmas. But I knew about Christmas trees. How, I cannot recollect. I thought it would be very nice to have a Christmas tree, and I pondered to do something about it. Now I have to explain the geography of the area a little bit. Wherever the North Sea hits Holland, there are sandy beaches and dunes, which shelter the hinterland, otherwise protected by dikes. Close to the village, the dike ended and the dune began. Precisely at the junction, there was the smallest polder hemmed in a corner between dune, sea dike and the sleeper dike, once built as a safeguard for a dune breakthrough. In an area of some 20 acres, there were 3 houses and a work shed. One was a nice, larger house in the trees, with an extensive garden and an orchard at the foot of the dune. This was the official residence of the manager of the waterschap, the authority dealing with dikes and water. The manager, holding one of the best positions in the village, was my uncle, my mother's brother. The other two were 2 small whitewashed houses with starred sheds belonging to cottagers who owned a small piece of land and had difficulty making ends meet. In one of these lived my grandfather, my mother's and uncle's father, with his second wife and his son Jan. He had lost his first wife, my grandmother, in his early 50s, after which he took a housekeeper half his age. They were so much in love that the workmen of the waterschap work shed across the ditch spied on them behind the willows, making jokes. They married at her bedside when she was about to give birth, which in those times and in the Christian Reformed Church implied the greatest sin and a terrible scandal. From then on, there were few, if any, social relations between my parents' and uncle's families and that of my grandfather. My uncle and his father lived a few hundred feet apart in the same cozy little polder at the foot of the towering sea dike, on the same piece of the dead-end road. Jan, my mother's half-brother, was therefore also my uncle, and he was 1 year younger than I. However, I got on well with him, in spite of my mother's reluctance to have anything to do with him. So I talked to him about my Christmas tree ideas, and we set out to find a suitable one. On the land side of the dune, there was an evergreen plantation. There were 2 problems. One was that they belonged to a fenced-off area of the waterschap, signed with entrance forbidden. But we always went there anyway, to pick blackberries or to look for birds' nests. The second problem was that the Germans had recently declared beaches and dunes forbidden for civilians, as part of the Atlantic Wall, which stretched along the entire continent from the north of Norway to the south of France, to prevent an invasion by the Allied forces. And soldiers with rifles were patrolling the area once every 2 hours. But the soldiers were always on the seaside of the dunes, where the trees were just a small distance away from a fence along a safe area. We therefore went there with a saw and took a small tree about 4 feet high. We carried it to a shed near my parents' home. But I hadn't thought much about what to do once we got the tree. The only thing I could come up with was to announce proudly to my mother that now we got a Christmas tree and that we should take it into the house. Disaster followed. She wasn't pleased at all. We had to tell her we got it from the dunes. She raged that we stole the tree from a forbidden and dangerous area and that she would have to tell my uncle, and who knows what he would do. Jan was dismissed summarily with the message that his parents would have to deal with him. As for me, I had to wait until my uncle came, and then something terrible would happen. I waited anxiously the rest of the afternoon and evening, but I heard nothing about the matter anymore. My uncle never talked to me about it, and we had Christmas as usual. One of the nice things about Christmas was the singing. In ordinary church services, only psalms were sung, as these were the pure words of God. The church allowed 31 other hymns, but these were a bit frowned upon as not being quite right. But at Christmas we sang from the special hymns the song of the angels near Bethlehem. Glory to God in the highest heavens. And while singing, you could see and hear the angels in the distance. It is never so difficult to believe in angels.